Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, the author of The Captivating Public Speaker, Peter George.
Do you want to deliver your messages with precision and clarity? Would you like to learn how to give yourself the gift of time as you communicate? If you said yes to either of these questions, then listen in as my guest, Alan Carroll, shows you how to be in the driver's seat of your communication. In this episode, he explains the transcendent dimension of consciousness that resides just on the other side of the thoughts you speak. He describes how this can transform your ability to not only articulate your thoughts in a more professional manner, but also to ground and relax yourself in the present moment. For the past 30 years, Alan has led Alan Carroll and Associates, specializing in transpersonal psychology. Before that, he spent 10 years as a senior sales training consultant at Digital Equipment Corporation. Here's my conversation with Alan Carroll. Hi, Alan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Peter. Great to be here.
Alan, you call yourself a mindful, spacious speaker. What is a mindful, spacious speaker?
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How aware, when you are speaking right now, how aware are you of where one word ends and the next word begins? And when you ask people that question, they'll say, well, I'm not aware of that at all. I don't need to be aware of that, Peter. I need to be aware of what I want to say.
That would have been my answer.
I don't need to be aware of where one sound stops and the next sound begins. That'd be a waste of words. That'd be an empty space of nothingness. I have to fill that space up with something. So a mindful, spacious speaker is not only creating the sounds, the words, but more importantly, Peter, much, much more importantly, they're able to connect in that empty space that they just created to a space of consciousness, which you could call mindfulness, you could call presence, you could call enlightenment, because there's no judgment. And that space is available to everybody, from children to old folks like me. And so a mindful, spacious speaker practices that skill.
And what would be the ultimate benefits of it?
When you are able to create a space between the thoughts that you speak, you immediately have a wave of relaxation flow through your body. Because every time you speak, you're pushing energy out. And every time you pause, you're allowing the energy to come in. And that will give you a balance. That will give you a mental equilibrium balance. And if you can balance the thoughts that are being stirred up to a point where they don't get stirred up anymore, then you have mental equilibrium. And when you have mental equilibrium, you are able to be physically still, emotionally calm, mentally alert, and connected to the ocean of consciousness, rather than me and what I want to say right now, Peter. It's what I'm talking about. I'm not speaking anymore for the ego. I now have relaxed into that spaciousness of the being, and that has a lot more love, a lot more compassion, a lot more joy and bliss when you just become aware that there's an empty space that you can create right now between the thoughts that you speak. When you begin to practice the mindful, spacious speaking, you are able to relax and breathe. You got, see, an amateur speaker doesn't even aware of breathing. Why would I be aware of breathing? Well, if you can be aware of breathing, then you can increase the amount of prana energy that you're bringing into your body while you're doing those presentations in front of customers in which your physical body is a little tense, which constricts things, versus pausing, grounded, relaxed, and present time. That's the benefit.
It's funny you should say that, because I don't say it in the way that you do. You explain it so well. But when I'm on a podcast or I'm speaking to someone and they say, what's one word of advice that you could give to a new speaker? And my answer is always breathe. Just breathe.
Yep. Because you want access to a dimension of consciousness, which is not the disembodied state of your thoughts. You want to be access to a consciousness that's embodied in the body. And the more you can take your attention from the thoughts that you're thinking, which create the stirring up of everything, to take your attention and put it into your body, that will create like a scissors that will cut the connection that will allow you then to become embodied. And the number one tool that you have to become embodied is to become aware of your breathing. But you have to be able to have the thought inside your head while I'm talking to you right now about whatever string of thought that I'm talking about, to be able to stop and then go back onto that train of thought. So you are consciously breathing, and that is deeply rooted to your present moment, because you can't think and breathe at the same time.
Do you think it's a lot like Richard Strauss's quote of the real music is in between the notes?
Well said. Several people point to that concept, that what makes jazz great, it's not necessarily the notes, it's the rest. And using that analogy as a filter to judge amateur mindful spacious speakers and professional mindful spacious speakers, is there any rest created between the sounds that this person is speaking? Because if there is, they now have control of the timing of the speaking. And who are you speaking for? You're speaking for your ego. And if I can consciously pull one of the ego's words out that I was going to say and stick an empty space of a pause to replace it, then I'm now controlling the tongue of the ego. And now I have a choice about what sound I want to make next.
So what can my listeners do to build this mindful spacious muscle in their lives?
It's asking yourself to wake up as often as possible during the day. Well, wake up from what? I am awake. Well, you're in a dreamlike state of awareness with thoughts inside your head, but you don't know. Eckhart Tolle would say you wake up and you plug in your five senses, and all day long it's just one continuous stream of thinking. About 80,000 thoughts a day, every day go by. 95% is the same thought you thought yesterday. So what can you do? Consciously disrupt that stream of thought. And one of my favorite movies, Peter, was The Matrix. And The Matrix gave Neo the red pill. That disrupted the thoughts. Well, we're not into that kind of a drug, but we'll give you a different drug. We'll do a drug rehabilitation program here. And that will teach you the stop technique. The stop technique, S-T-O-P. Just see if you can do it one time. It takes about 30 seconds. Can you do it one time? Just one time. After we talk, just do it one time. That plants the seed. Well, in order to stop, you have to, okay, I'm thinking about this. Wait a minute, I'm thinking about something. Alan talked about stopping. Okay, I'm going to stop. If I can, close my eyes, get my body as still as possible. And then I'm going to take 3 deep breaths. And when I'm going to breathe in, that's the T, S-T, 3 deep breaths. And when I breathe out, O, observe any tension in my body and allow it to flow out of the soles of my feet. Do that 3 times. And then The next one, the P, proceed with kindness. Whatever you do, the next action you take when you open your eyes, if you closed your eyes, do an act of kindness. Smile on your face, award, acknowledge, give love, send an email, do some act of kindness, and just do it one time. We do it one time. And what happens is that when you come out of that little 30-second experience, whatever thought that you were thinking when you entered into the experience has evaporated. And so you were able to create a piece of stillness in the agitation of the mind. And that will allow the mind to become still. And that is an easy technique that's available to everybody. The stop technique.
Have you heard what noted speakers and readers are saying about Peter's book, The Captivating Public Speaker? A love letter to creating significant impact and authentic influence. If you're looking to increase your impact through spoken word, this book is a must-read. Extremely well written, engaging, fun, and serious at the same time. After this episode, please use the link in the show notes to check out The Captivating Public Speaker on Amazon. Now, back to Peter and his guest.
It seems like something like this would help when people get nervous. How can we reduce this anxiety we might have?
When I think about that question, what comes to my mind is, have I earned the right to speak? Have I done my 10,000 hours in Outliers? Did I do 10,000 hours of work here? Is the depth of the ice underneath my feet solid? Is it a solid foundation? Or, Peter, is the ice thin? So the deeper you've earned the right to speak, the deeper the ice is going to be, the more confident you are in throwing your thoughts out into the audience, because you're pushing off of your feet when you throw those thoughts out there. And if I'm grounded, then the thought is, you can't ask me a question I can't answer. And if I operate, you can't ask me a question that I can't answer, then I'm here to sing my song. Now, the quality of the song depends on controlling the timing. If you don't control the timing, you may have a great song, but it's not enchanting. And so you have to be able to create a space consciously, pausing 1 second, 2 seconds, just a little tiny crack between the sounds that you speak will begin to dissolve the ego. And so the spacious speaking is important. Another area that's important, Peter, would be the level of rapport that you're establishing with the audience.
Incredibly important.
You started our conversation by sharing a personal story, a vulnerable story, a stupid story. You were a fool. And it turns out that the most powerful card in the tarot is the Fool. And most people think, oh, maybe it's card 21, the World. No, it's the Fool, because the Fool is a zero card. And it means it doesn't have any position. It's able to move all around the space. The ego has a number, and it's not able to move. So when you opened yourself up, you allowed the foolish energy to come out, which creates a space of openness, friendliness, laughter, humor. My firewalls go down, your firewalls go down, because we begin to build rapport. And I love stories. If you want people to understand things, telling people stories is a useful tool to help people pay attention. Because people like, Peter, let me tell you a story. Well, that got your attention right away.
And they remember it more than if you were just talking about nuts and bolts.
Yep. Yeah. And analogies. Analogies is another one that I find that people are weak on. You got to be able to, if I can connect, like in the IT world, you have what's a router? Okay, a router, it was way too complex. Let's not worry about a router. Have you ever been to a post office? Oh, yeah, I've been to the post office. Well, the post office, you write an address on an envelope and you mail it. A router just is the post office. You just write the letter, you press the button, it goes to the router, and the router sends the letter all over the postal system. That's what a router does. It's a mailbox. Oh, well, now I understand. Well, see, you took that complex concept that I'll never understand, and you gave them an analogy. Whoo, and they'll remember those analogies, and they'll remember those stories. And the more personal the story was, which was a great story for a fledgling podcaster like myself. So I really enjoyed it. Tell the audience now they want to know what it was.
The first podcast I ever did was with a guest. I waited for a while to have him on. We had a great conversation. I was thrilled that he was my first guest, that it went so well. And then when we went to edit the conversation, we realized I never hit record. And he was so gracious, to tell you the truth. When I called him and said, hey, I have a problem here, he said, what are you doing Friday? So he helped me out, and we got right back together, recorded it again. And you can always listen to that first podcast with Bob Berg. Very, very gracious man. But I told Alan that story because he's looking at starting a podcast of his own. And I said, make sure you hit record.
And I said, that's good advice, Peter. That's good advice.
Miss hitting record once and you'll never miss it again. We do remember stories, and hopefully, Alan, you'll remember that. And when you start your podcast, you always hit record. So we talked about stories. We talked about analogies. What else can my listeners do? What else can they practice that'll help them be better speakers?
The best tool to practice speaking would be an environment in which you start that you feel safe. I feel safe. So no one's going to hear me. I'm not going to be judged. So that would be the bathroom, perhaps, or the den, or some quiet spot, and get yourself a mirror and begin to sit down in front of that mirror. Keep your eyes closed. Don't have to look at yourself yet. Don't want to deal with that one yet. Just sit in front of the mirror, close your eyes, and get your body relaxed. Keep relaxing your body. Keep putting energy into your body, relaxing. Get your body relaxed. And there's lots of exercises you can do to get your physical body relaxed. Then open your eyes. Just hold attention to your eyes, to yourself, and see if you can keep your body relaxed while holding your eye contact with yourself. You haven't said anything yet. And you'll notice that your body is going to do all sorts of stuff. And get that out of the way in the privacy of your bathroom rather than up on the stage. And that begins to create a sense of stillness in your body. You're breathing, you're relaxing your body, and now you're chilled now. You're nice and ready to go. Then start to speak very slowly. Very, very slowly. And I am consciously creating the sound, consciously creating no sound, and telling my body, breathe and relax between those two sounds. And do that until you can go at a very slow speed, first gear of the car. Then if you can do that, keeping your body relaxed, eye contact, then try a little faster. And that's like going to the gym in the privacy of your home. And you'll notice that by practicing that, the organic growth, you used that term before, the organic growth of the being, we begin to plant these little pieces of stillness or emptiness or pauses between the sounds that you speak, and it begins to dilute and dissolve the fabric of the ego. And that creates the tension, and that creates the anxiety. But it's organic. It's beyond consciousness here. It's beyond conceptual. You can't describe it. It's just, you got to be able to stop and cut the cord of the ego, which is the tongue, which means I have to be present to do that. Got to be here to do that. Can't be thinking about dinner right now. No, I got to be thinking about controlling my tongue. Practice the stop technique.
I'm going to try that.
Well, you're a professional speaker, Peter.
It's okay. I can always learn.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things I like about doing these conversations is the exchange of knowledge. Also, it allows me to practice speaking about something that is very transformational in people's lives. Because if I can control the speaking of the ego, then I'm released. I've achieved a state of consciousness called mukti. Mukti is liberation beyond thought. And the tool that I'm using when I take that sound out and I put the emptiness in, that's a empty space. That turns out to be the fifth element. Earth, air, fire, and water. What's that fifth element? It's space, which is metaphysical. Doesn't exist. You can't see the space between my hands, but there's one there. So I am now consciously using the fifth element in order to release the self from the physical world and allow yourself to experience that there's another world here beyond the thoughts that you think. And most people will never, ever have that experience in their entire life. And that's the journey from the ego to the being. And that's what a transpersonal psychologist is up to.
Do you think this is what the people we might consider great speakers or great leaders, do you think it's what they have in common?
Absolutely. Because they are able to control their tongue. And the ego doesn't control the tongue. The tongue is controlled by the ego. When you realize that there's a space there that I control the tongue, then I have tamed the tongue of the ego. And so now the power of my speaking is in my hands, not the ego's hands, which are based on my conditioning and the past experiences that I've had. I'm not able to be here, right here. But every time I pause, I become here. And the saying is, it's like you're going to erase the thought that I was just going to speak. And as I erase the thoughts, it becomes clear. You're not contaminating the movie anymore with your opinion about the movie. You're just watching the movie. Everything just is. You're not saying that's good, that's bad. No, you're just watching the movie now. But there has to be a space between the movie and you. And right now, people, there's no space. But if you can create a space between the thoughts that you speak, you're well on the path to reducing the dissatisfaction that you experience in your life. And that's that's good news for people, because space is free.
Alan, thanks so much for helping my listeners understand more about mindful, spacious speaking and how it can benefit them. Where can they go to learn more?
The website, ACA Mindful, MINDFULUYOU.com. That's the portal that enters into the world that we're talking about now. And we offer online coaching, we offer virtual classes, we offer public classes, we offer corporate classes. I've been doing this for 40 years, been over to 60 countries, thousands of people, all the corporations. So it's fun to be able to offer our services.
Well, I'll have that website in the show notes. People can go to it, learn more about you, how you can help them. And Alan, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Peter, thank you for the opportunity to hopefully demonstrate professional, mindful, spacious speaker.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to tune in again for a conversation with another public speaking expert. And remember to use the link in the show notes to go to Amazon and check out Peter's acclaimed book, The Captivating Public Speaker.